Hello, everyone, and welcome to our monthly MBH Board chat with me, your host, Lisa Maynard-Atem. I'm delighted today to be joined by someone who's a bit of a celebrity in the world of MBH and beyond, the wonderful Neil Fachi, OBE, 16 times world champion cyclist, Paralympian, performance business coach, best-selling author, speaker, and specializes in high performance, to say but a few things. Hello, Neil, and welcome to the MBH Board chat. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Lisa. I'm not sure about celebrity, but I'll take it. I'm pretty ordinary. I can assure you when I'm out and about, no one notices who I am. But pleasure to be here anyway. I'm looking forward to having a chat with you.
That's fantastic. Of all the words I would use, Neil, ordinary is definitely not one of them, not with all of your accolades. But anyway, thank you for joining me. So let's kick things off. Firstly, can you tell our MBH community a little bit about who you are and what you do within MBH?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you've given a little bit of background. I'm a professional cyclist as well as a performance business coach, which is kind of on the side. I mean, I'm still riding my bike at 39 years of age now and getting on, but it's been something I've been doing for well over a decade now, representing Britain and Scotland at multiple Paralympic, World and Commonwealth Games, and picking up a fair few medals along the way and a few titles, as you say, as well with the OBE. So it's been an amazing career. And I guess I'm starting to transition at some point. My sporting career will inevitably come to an end. It doesn't last forever. So performance business coaching was what I started to go into, where I'm taking the insights and lessons from the world of elite sport and using them in a business environment, which I guess is partly how I ended up on the board at MBH, which is, a board apprenticeship that I've been doing, where I've had the opportunity to learn how a board works at this level, which has been fascinating, I have to say, really interesting. And equally, hopefully I can bring some insights myself, as I say, from the world of elite sports. And equally, I'm someone with a visual impairment. So in terms of sport, I ride in the back of a tandem. It's quite a unique thing, but I also bring that unique angle, I guess, of disability to the boardroom, which is something I'm sure we'll discuss later in the interview as well.
Yeah, definitely. Which leads me nicely into my next question. What elements of your experience as a world-class athlete and business coach are you bringing to the MBH board?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's a few areas that. So I work with quite a few businesses sort of on the coaching side, and it's amazing how many of the simple things that companies and teams miss out on because you're so focused on doing what you do best. And it's easy to kind of to miss the basic stuff, which in the world of sport, it's something that we have to really keep in mind because we're progressing all the time. Everything's always moving forwards. And that ability just to plan for the future. I mean, we're always working in these sort of 4-year cycles between games where you have to plan how you're going to win a gold medal in 4 years when inevitably things move on. So that ability to kind of strategize and to adapt when the playing field sort of moves. And I think just bringing that simplicity of how you set targets, how you get targets, and keep progressing and moving forwards and not getting too caught up in the day-to-day business of just putting out fires, which is what most of
Yeah.
us in a business environment end up doing, I think.
Yeah, I think something you've said there, which is something I'm working really hard on at the moment because I'm working for myself again, is the simplicity of kind of setting targets. I think what I've been guilty of in the past is I've maybe tried to overcomplicate things. And actually sometimes, simplicity, I always say simplicity has a sophistication that complexity can't match. And sometimes it's just good to make it simple and then just execute from that point. But it's taken me quite a while to kind of learn learn that, and I'm still
Yeah.
learning.
Oh, and we're all guilty getting carried away with things. And, it happens in sport all the time as well, where new ideas come along and everyone jumps on the bandwagon and you're like, this is the new thing I need to be doing. And it's all cyclical that we end up
Yeah.
back to where we were 10 years ago doing the same things. And it's just that basic of like set ourselves what we need to do and work towards it, I think is the key. So I'm glad you're on the right track as well, Lisa.
Yeah. So when it comes to cultivating high performance, what are the parallels between the world of sport and the world of business?
Yeah, I think there are loads, to be honest. I mean, it's obviously ultra competitive. Like if you're not at the top, you're almost a nobody. That's the reality. But um it's that fact that the world's always changing, F1's progressing at an incredible rate, and just to be stationary isn't enough. If you're not moving forwards, you're falling behind, I think is a key thing. And it's very obvious in sport because the winning times from each games progress every 4 years. Like we can see it really, really easily. In a business environment, maybe sometimes it's harder to notice and it's easy to fall behind, but it's it's ever evolving and you have to stay ahead of the game, which is a real challenge. I think the other side really is that ability to work as a team and not just an individual. You know, if you're starting out with your own business, maybe it's just you to begin with, and you have to evolve pretty quickly to bring other people on board if you're going to move forwards. And that's very much the case in sport. I mean, often one person stands on top of the podium, but there's a huge team of people behind them who are experts in what they do. And I think it's utilizing that team for the performance. It is crucial. And finally, probably around the kind of mindset of it, where particularly those entrepreneurs who are out leading from the front, like yourself, working for yourself, that it's very easy just to get sort of stuck in that world where you're not really interacting with other people so much. You're just doing your own thing. And it's great when things are going well, but those days when it's not going so well, you get lost in your own head. And I think that happens in a business sense quite often. It certainly does in sport. And that ability to still perform on those days when it's not really happening, I think that's important, and that's quite a big parallel. So I think there are loads. I certainly notice it, and I do get the buzz of working in a business environment similar to that sporting sense. And I think that's why I've gravitated towards it.
Yeah, I think what you've mentioned there about kind of finding the motivation to keep going when you don't, on those days when you really don't want to. I think that's another thing for me, is that on the days where I find I don't want to work as much as I do maybe other days, those are the days I really push myself. So I think, right, okay, just get on and do it, Lisa. It will pay dividends in the end. But yeah, I do think that's a really important thing, especially when you're working for yourself, because you're going to have days where you just think, oh, I just want to stay in bed, watch TV. But actually it's like, no, come on, get up and get on with it. I think that's really, really key.
Yeah, definitely. It's the easy option always to not, you don't want to put yourself into that kind of scary unknown at times, isn't it, as well? That's the key thing. And very much something as someone who rides on the back of a tandem with someone else controlling the bike, I'm used to putting myself in that fear factor, but it's not easy, and there's days when I don't fancy it, and like yourself, and you just got to get up and do it, which is definitely easier said than done. And there's definitely a mindset to that. And there's a few tools and things I think people could utilize to get the most out of it. And that's something I like to kind of help people find as well.
Okay, well, that leads me on to my next question. What would be your top 3 tips when it comes to cultivating high performance? What should we all be doing in order to be the best versions of ourselves from a performance perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we've touched on a few. I think first and foremost, is taking that little bit of time to reflect, to figure out what really motivates you, what drives you forwards. We're talking about that getting out of bed when you don't fancy it. That's when you need to tap into those things. I know you're very passionate about what you do, and that's why you get up and push every single day. Whereas sometimes, I guess there's times in my early career where I maybe didn't have that, because I hadn't taken the time to really reflect on what's important to me, what motivates me. And for me personally now, it's, thinking of people with disability, particularly those with a visual impairment, and kind of showing them what they're capable of. And that's why I want to keep putting the performances higher and higher in a sporting sense. So tapping into that drive is crucial. The other one that sort of alluded to is that ability to plan and strategize for the future, that real basic stuff. There might be people that say they goal set who probably maybe have some vague idea where they want to be, but don't actually sit there and write down these targets. Like I have targets in training, usually in 8-week blocks, maybe 4 or 8 week blocks, where I'll have a set of targets and goals that I'm aiming to get. Whether I achieve them or not, I'm progressing. So I've always got them. I've got them written down, usually got them on my phone and notes. I can refer to them whenever I want, and actually having it written down with a real key in mind and sharing those targets with my coach so that someone else is aware. That accountability is really key. So it's something we often say we do, but I don't think a lot of people do it. And the final one is around that mindset. I think it's really important to be able to utilize a few tricks. My key one that I use is really basic is the idea of self-talk,
Yes.
where you're speaking inside your own head. So I've mentioned this probably a few times, but people have between 60 and 80,000 individual thoughts every single day going on in your head, which is a huge amount of thoughts. And a lot of those are completely irrelevant and useless, but we can actually channel that to a certain degree. So the obvious one we don't really want is that negative self-talk where we bring ourselves down, which is the one we often default to because it's
Yes.
kind of the easy one to bring yourself down and inevitably talk yourself out of doing anything. Whereas there are plenty of other ones we can use. And a lot of people do kind of mindset stuff, so that calming self-talk. Instructional self-talk is another one I use before I go into a race. I'm telling myself what I need to do beforehand. So before you go into a big meeting, reminding yourself about the key things you need to go through, whatever it might be. And then the idea of being able to motivate yourself. There's positive motivational, where you're bigging yourself up in your head. Now, we've all got, we all don't want to appear like big egotistical people. And I'm not asking you to stand there and stand in the street telling yourself how good you are. It's all internalized, but just that ability to remind yourself that you can do it, you've done it before. And the really important one is that negative motivational, is that like I'll prove them wrong attitude, which is really powerful. And if you can tap into that instead of using negative talk that brings you down, but using it as something that motivates you, like that's really, really powerful. And it's amazing what results you can get. So it's that ability to channel your own thoughts. It's easier said than done, but the more you do it, it becomes second nature, really. And with those sort of three things, kind of sky's the limit, really.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So moving on to equality, diversity, and inclusion. So this is a topic that you and I have had numerous conversations about. So when it comes to those who identify as having a disability, some of which obviously are not visible, representation at senior level, as we both know, is woefully lacking. In your opinion, what needs to happen in order for this to change?
Yeah, like you say, we've spoken a lot, and it's what we're both very passionate about. And there's a lot needs to happen. There needs to be people at the seats at the table, essentially. We need to have those role models that are in place so that people with disabilities can look up and see that, you know what, this could be for me. At the moment, I don't think they're in place. The last thing we want are people just to be at the table for the sake of being at the table, but we need to have some role models there. And there are lots of people with disabilities who are incredibly intelligent, incredibly, hardworking, great people to have on board. And as we've talked about, having diversity on boards is so important, just to have those different viewpoints, different perspectives. Like, I feel like companies are missing out so much by having just a very one-dimensional board without these different views. So we just need to get seats there. It's all good and well getting people employed and in the companies, but unless they're actually at that senior level, it's not really having the impact. So that's where we need to get to. It's a big ask, but it's achievable.
Yeah. And I think, I know we say it's a big ask, but the reality is, for me, Neil, as I've said to you before, this should happen anyway. We all, we are all representatives of society, wider society. So it always baffles me that we don't have more diverse and inclusive top tables. It's like everybody contributes to society. So why is everybody not represented? So for me, it's I'm kind of, I do get a little bit frustrated when I see people say, oh, it's a big ask. It's like, it shouldn't be an ask at all, really. We should all have the opportunity to kind of have our say and be represented. But, we are where we are, and we are doing our bit to try and make a difference. So I think that's the most important thing. So moving on to my next question, outside of the work that MBH is doing to level the playing field, are you seeing any sort of meaningful change in terms of inclusion and representation for your community, for people who identify as having a disability?
I think it's really, really minimal at this stage.
Yeah.
Lots of big companies, I'm aware, do have, they'll maybe have committees around disability, maybe have talks every so often, and are making some sort of effort. But it feels to me with a lot that it's a box ticking thing at the moment. And when it actually comes to that senior level, I mean, it's shockingly poor. So there's a lot needs to happen. I think the one area where it seems to happen a bit more, I've seen there's very little in the way of statistics, but I saw some statistics around the inclusion of people with disabilities on boards within the NHS. And they're the one place where there seems to be some level. It's still quite low.
Yeah.
I think it was somewhere around 3 or 4% of boards and committees in the NHS maybe have people with disabilities. Now, when you consider the somewhere between 15 and 20% of the population consider themselves disabled, it's still really low, but it's much higher than many other organisations. So I guess they're starting the journey, and maybe it makes more sense that you'd expect that in the NHS. But yeah, I think there's a long way to go at this stage. But people are out there, and I say there are capable people out there. So we just got to keep getting our voice heard, I guess, and get more people. Once we have one or two who are actually making a real big impact, then hopefully companies will see the benefit and we'll really start to see things go from there. But it's a long way off at the moment, I think.
Yeah, I think what I was really shocked by when you first joined the MBH board and we were talking about disability specifically, how poor the it's even worse, because I think when it comes to EDI, we tend to focus on gender, we focus on ethnicity, and obviously we should, but actually there are other communities that don't get that focus, and I think disability is one of them. I think it's absolutely appalling how poor the representation is, and I definitely think it's something that needs to be looked at. I mean, I was genuinely shocked, like I say, when you first joined the board and we were talking about it, and I actually went away as a result of those conversations, and I've been doing my own research and having my own conversations, and I just couldn't believe it. I was just appalled, for want of a better word.
Yeah, and as you say, the statistics aren't really there, so people aren't aware of the fact, which is if you're not aware there's a problem, you're never going to fix it. And I think maybe that's the starting point, is getting that data out there. And in other areas, as you say, I mean, getting gender and ethnicity levels up, it's a slow journey, but I guess things are starting to improve in that front. But there's lots of areas out there we need to improve on. It's not just disability either. And as you always preach, the more diverse the board is, the more productive it's likely to be. Yeah. So, it's a no-brainer really for people to make that change. And you are pioneering that, Lisa. So keep doing the work you're doing.
Well, so are you. So I think it's absolutely fantastic what you do. And I just think for me, just kind of seeing what you do in terms of sport, I think it's amazing. And I just really hope that other people from your community see that as well, and they're inspired to do something. And it just shows that, you can do anything you want to. We just need to kind of increase the representation and level the playing field more for people. Anyway, finally, my final question for you is, what has been on the MBH board done for you, and what advice would you give to anyone who identifies as having a disability who wants to join a board?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost for me, being on the board has just helped me see that it's not this incredibly scary world that I can't be part of.
Yeah.
I'm able to sit on that board and have an opinion, and that's great. And just first and foremost, to see how a board works has been really intriguing for me. Many people just never get that chance to get to that level, and perhaps see it as this scary world that's just above them. But in reality, it just isn't. It's something most people are capable of doing. Yeah, so it's been a phenomenal experience for me. I've appreciated every minute of it. It's really interesting, and it's a nice world away from my sporting world as well. In terms of getting involved, I mean, companies are going to be crying out for people with disabilities. So, any training you can do, any experience on committees or whatever it might be, I think is vital. If you get out there and just first and foremost, get some experience. If you can, then I think boards will be absolutely biting your hand off to get you involved. But if you can't do that, then I know there's organizations and things who, like I said, the Board Apprentice scheme, who will, I'm sure, try and find a spot for you. And I definitely recommend people come forward and have a go with that. It's been really interesting for me. I've loved it. And I don't think I'm the most capable board member out there by any means with a disability. So I'd love to see others come forward. Whether they're from the world of sport or not doesn't really matter. I think there's a real world out there. So and feel free to contact me as well, and I'm happy to try and make that introductions and get people involved.
Yeah, likewise. So that's it from me in terms of questions. But finally, one very last thing, as I want to wish you good luck, because I know you're going to be competing soon. So yeah, just wanted to wish you the best of luck for that, and obviously we'll all be cheering you on.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. Yeah, hopefully I had another few world titles to my collection if I can. And yeah, thanks for the chat. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. And like I say, we'll be cheering you on in your endeavours. And also thank you to everybody for watching today. And don't forget to like this video, comment and subscribe to our channel. We'll see you again very soon. Thank you very much. Bye.
Find out more today at mbhcorporation.com.